Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, your home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. In today's video, we're going to be profiling Leef Brands. This is a cannabis company. They've got earnings upcoming next week. A lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below if you've heard of Leef Brands before and you're currently holding shares. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, that's right. We've got Mariusz back on the channel. We're going to be taking a look at Leef Brands in today's episode. This is a cannabis focused company, a diversified platform. We're going to be talking about some of the key, competitive advantages in this sector and upcoming earnings. So a lot to discuss. Mariusz, great to have you back on the channel. Good to see you again. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. We're having another conversation about another company that I'm a shareholder of, Leef Brands. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna like it a lot because you see, when we invest, obviously we love the upside, right? We want to make the 10x, whatever. But there's a difference between shooting for an upside and having a lot of margin of safety. And I think this is what we have here. It's huge upside, but our downside is protected. There's a lot of margin of safety, and I'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about it. My channel really started in the cannabis space. I know this sector has evolved a lot over the last few years. I understand Leef Brands operates in some of the biggest markets really in the United States, being California and New York. So I'm curious to kind of talk through their strategy. From my understanding, they also have a retail presence and a little something by the name of Salisbury Farm. So it's kind of the vertically integrated story we're all looking for in the cannabis space. Can you tell us a bit about this company and maybe what interested you in Leef Brands?
Well, Leaf Brands has many components, and one of the components is the regulatory reform that it can provide a huge upside, but it's not necessary. So if you are in or if you talked about the cannabis space in the past, you know what's happening in the United States. That in the United States right now, cannabis is not legal. But there's a lot of talks in the government. Donald Trump said that he wants to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which would be not full legalization. They would be able to have banking, and they would be able to deduct certain expenses, but this would be a huge step towards legalization. And I remember the time when Joe Biden promised something on that front, and then the cannabis stocks just went to the moon. So those names can absolutely be crazy explosives. But what's unique about Leef Brands is that it's not needed. It's not needed for the stock to go up. It's not needed for the investment thesis to work out. So on the business front, so Leef Brands, as you said, is a cannabis company mostly in California. But they also have operations in New York. And the cannabis business is divided into two parts, the flower side and the extract side. So the flower is self-explanatory. That's what we know cannabis to be. But many people don't understand that there's the other side of cannabis, which is the extracts. So what it means is that you take a flower and you extract the cannabis properties from that flower, and you produce extract. Kind of looks like honey. And then that extract is an ingredient that can be infused into other products such as gummies, vape pens, or cannabis-infused drinks. So what Leef Brands does is Leef Brands operates on this extract side, and they produce this extract. So the top brands in California buy this extract from Leef Brands, and then they use it to to infuse and produce their finished products, which is again vape pens, cannabis drinks, or whatever else they want to infuse this extract into. And so, what is unique about Leef Brands is that for the past 3 years, there was no story, because they've been hard working on their farm that you mentioned. So when I say there was no story, was because revenues were flat, about 30 million flat, and the company was not profitable. So if you're not profitable and you're not growing, well, why would I buy the stock? And that's where they were. But November 4th, which is just a couple days from now, everything will change, because when they had flat revenues and no profitability, they also had very low gross profit margins, because in order to produce their extract, what they were doing is they were buying the flower from independent farms. So they were buying the flower from 200, 300 independent farms. And then they were producing their extract. Well, because of that, their margins, the gross profit margins, were in the neighborhood of about a little bit more than 30%. Well, that's not enough to make them profitable. But what they did several years ago, they acquired a farm that was used for something else than cannabis. It didn't have a license. So they put a lot of money into that farm and they licensed it for cannabis and they planted it. And this is a completely transformational event for them, because when they were buying the flower from independent farmers, they were paying between $20 to $40 per pound. And with their farm, they are able to produce the same flower for between $6 to $12 per pound. And so it doesn't take a genius to realize what kind of impact this will have on gross profit margins. And November 4th is when they report their financials. And this will be the first time that the farm is going to be included in the financial statement. This will be the first time that investors are going to see, wow, these margins really exploded. And I'm not telling you, inside information here. If you go to Leef Brands website and you follow their story, you can see pictures, videos of the farm being planted. They're showing what it looks like. They're talking about how the impact of the farm, what kind of impact it will have on margins and cost and all that. But because it's not showing up in the financial statement, the market is kind of sleeping. And I believe on November 4th, the market is going to wake up and the story is going to go from boring, no growing revenues, no profitability, to growth in revenues, explosion in margins, and maybe even profitability.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time. And as you said, kind of a pivotal or transformative moment for the company. Now, in terms of the scale we're talking here, the Salisbury Canyon Ranch, you can see from the videos, you just talked about the planting event. This is a large facility, ability to bring in a lot of the dry flower that then can be used in the extraction process. On the extraction side of things, Leef Brands also known for their scale. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of how these facilities, this farm is set up to help this company succeed long term?
Well, they even used in some of the interviews, they said that this is the biggest or one of the biggest cannabis farms in the world. That's and for the financials that will come out on November 4th, I believe they only had maybe a month and a half of that during the quarter that's going to show up. So right now they started with a portion of the farm that's going to show up, but then over the months and over the years they're going to expand it. And then on the extraction side, they have three types of extraction lines: ethanol, solventless, and hydrocarbons. So that produce, their finished product. So this is a pretty sizable facility. Uh, I recall the CEO was talking about how with this farm they have a target or direction that they could double their revenues from the current 30 millions of revenues to 60 millions over, of course, over the number of quarters, over the number of years. But also on the growth side, recently they entered New York as a new state. And because right now cannabis is illegal in the United States and you cannot ship across state lines, in order to enter a different state, they have to set up our operations in a different state. In other words, you cannot produce something in California and ship it to a different state. You have to go, let's say, to New York and set up independent operations and produce it there. And that fact is also where the huge upside is if cannabis becomes legal in the United States. Because if you can ship across the state lines, well, which state has the moat? Which state can produce the cheapest, right? So if that happens, companies in California would literally be printing money. Because right now, California, it's kind of interesting because you wouldn't, unless you're in this space, you wouldn't know that California is the toughest state to make money. The product, the extract that Leaf is selling in California, it sells for a relatively low price, and the margins are smaller. Versus, for example, in New York, when they go to New York, the same product in New York sells for multiple times the price that it sells in California, and also they can get higher margins in New York. So that dynamic is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, I wanted to talk in terms of expansion. Noticed in the deck they've also got their retail presence named the Leef with the traditional spelling of the word. Can you talk a little bit about the retail strategy here? I've heard a lot in this industry, the vertical integration is really the keys to the kingdom. You've got production, you've got the actual extraction itself, and then the retail distribution. Can you tell us a little bit about that strategy?
Yeah, so I actually visited the extraction facilities of Leaf, and I also visited their dispensary in California. So there was a point of time when Leaf was considering having a strategy of having more retail stores. But they do have one retail location, and that retail location is actually managed by Glasshouse Brands, which is another company in California that is on the flower side, while Leaf Brands is on the extract side. So they have somebody else managing it now. They decided that the retail route is not something that they want to do because they are experts in the extract business. They are absolute expert, the best in the business on that side, and they decided to focus on that side.
That makes sense. And if you look actually at the slides in their deck talking about the California and New York market, you mentioned the edibles category, the drinks, the infused products. They're actually performing extremely well compared to some of the traditional products. I got to imagine this puts Leaf in a great position moving forward as well.
This is the new growth area, and that's why you have, for example, alcohol companies. They are watching this sector very, very closely, and that's another upside where the moment these companies, these alcohol companies or pharmaceutical companies, have the green light to go into this space, what are they going to do? They're going to acquire companies that are already experts in this sector, and the companies that already have expertise. Because this you have to have a lot of knowledge to be able to successfully operate in this industry.
Yeah. Now, the other component here I wanted to pick your brain about the Bitcoin treasury strategy or reserve. This is something kind of near and dear to my heart. We follow a lot of the digital asset treasury companies, the Bitcoin miners on the channel. This is another interesting angle to the Leaf Brands story.
Absolutely. And I I wasn't really I own a little bit of Bitcoin, but I didn't learn about Bitcoin fast enough, early enough. And it was because of this company that I learned about Bitcoin. I studied it because when I visited it and videotaped their facilities, I sat down with the CEO and he asked me, "What do you think about us putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet?" And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about? Are you crazy?" And he started talking more about Bitcoin, how he got interested in Bitcoin, and then he got me to read various literature about Bitcoin, and and I got sold myself. I studied it, I get it, I understand why people like it, why uh, why the need for something like Bitcoin was born because of our governments are just reckless, printing money nonstop, and and then of course once I learned that, for it makes total sense for companies like MicroStrategy or now Leaf to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And Leef Brands is the first that I know of, is the first cannabis company, public cannabis company that has Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And if you think about it, it's it's almost like a match made in heaven because Bitcoin is about freedom and cannabis is too about freedom. And also, because cannabis is illegal in the United States, these companies are outcasts. They don't have access to banking. They cannot deduct certain expenses. So Bitcoin is like is part of the culture. It's part of the solution. I can't have a banking situation. Well, Bitcoin can solve that. And maybe we can transact with some of our suppliers or some of our clients through Bitcoin. So when I heard that and I studied Bitcoin, I was like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And this is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, unfortunately, both of those industries have had some issues with regulation and obviously government policy. Now, you just mentioned something really important. You said you sat down with the CEO. So, on our channel, we have a lot of interviews with CEOs. I think that's really one of the angles or the alpha we can provide our viewers is some kind of backstage access to these CEOs. Obviously, you just mentioned the interest in Bitcoin. They had to break into this new market in New York. Can you talk about the leadership team here, their ability to really react and navigate this company?
Well, you see, that's the one of the benefits of being involved with smaller companies is that you can get access to the CEOs, to the management. If you're investing in Google, there's zero chance that you can get the CEO of Google on the phone. Uh, and with the smaller companies, uh, you can do that. You can visit the facilities. They will welcome you with open arms and they will explain to you the business. They will explain to you the passion. It's so different than just reading financial statements and whatever the lawyers wrote. You're there in person. They walk you through the facility. And the CEO of Leef Brands is he has been in this business for many, many years. Like he even spent some time in jail because of the industry that he was in. So the guy is completely invested, 100% passionate about the industry, knows what he's doing, and I mean, these guys are absolute experts in the extraction business. And I remember, um, again, sitting in front of him, he told me, because we're operating in California and because we survived this horrible market in the cannabis space, we have like a PhD from Harvard in this industry, you know, and so now going to uh, expanding to New York, or there's I'm sure there's going to be other states that will follow. I mean, these guys, it's like plug in and play. And also, what is amazing about them going to New York or other future states that they will enter is that it's a very low risk way of expanding. And let me explain you why. Because they are so good at producing the extract, the clients that they have in California, they are the top of the top brands for these products. These companies already operate in other states, like New York, and they are looking for somebody as good in another state to make them the extract. So when they entered New York, they didn't enter New York, oh, let's get a building, let's bring some equipment, and let's start cold calling clients. The clientele is already there. It's plug and play, and immediately they're generating revenues, and that's exactly also what's going to happen when if they decide to enter other states. And one other thing that when I talked about the upside, I promised that I was going to talk about the margin of safety or the downside protection. See, right now, Leaf's market cap is around $30 million, 30, 33, 35. Their farm, their Salisbury farm, was appraised for $40 million. So what else do you want? You have one of the assets, real estate, worth more than the market cap. This doesn't include the New York operation. This doesn't include the extraction facilities. And then on top of it, you have the upside from any sort of regulatory changes that can happen. And you and I know when something happens on the regulatory front, these companies are going to trade, and I mean cannabis companies are going to trade for valuations that don't even make sense. I remember it like yesterday. I remember I was watching this stock. I don't remember the name of it. Oh, the ticker symbol was MILC, MILC. I saw it go from 20 cents to $10 because they said we're getting into a cannabis space. I mean, when you have the wind behind your back, the regulatory is behind, and now you can have institutions enter this space. Because right now, let's face it, because of the regulatory environment, institutions cannot really play in that space. And also, you'll find this funny, is that the cannabis companies in the United States, they cannot trade on U.S. exchanges. So they go to Canada. But the Canadian cannabis companies, where do they trade? In the U.S. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit odd how that works, and like you say, some backwards thinking. Now, I wanted to finish off the conversation. You just mentioned the November 4th date, potential catalyst, this earnings call, some monumental changes or structural changes in the business. Aside from some of the margins that you talked about earlier, anything else we should be watching for this round of earnings?
Well, I mean, we might see, I mean, we will see probably a complete change. This is going to be the beginning of the change. Because remember, last 3 years, no growth, no profitability, horrible margins, no reason to invest. So I think this is going to be the first quarter where we might see revenue growth. We will most likely see improvement in margins because of they're showing us in the picture the farm is producing. They're telling us, they're giving us clues, and we might. I don't know if we will reach profitability yet because the farm has only been producing for about half of the quarter that's going to be reported. But I think we will see a very clear path towards profitability.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to for sure. You guys, I'll leave the link to the company website in the video description below. I know, Mariusz, you've done some videos or coverage on Leef as well if they want to get further information. Thanks so much for stopping by here today. I'll let you kind of close out, but a very interesting company and one to watch for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I just think it's very interesting. I've been involved as a shareholder for about a year and a half. So you guys are kind of spoiled here because I had to wait a year and a half for this farm to be put into production and successfully producing, and now you guys are coming in like somebody made the dinner and you're just ready. You're ready to consume it.
There you go. That's why we love having you on the channel. Yeah. No, a great story and looking forward to seeing the earnings. Let us know in the comment section below if you guys have heard of Leef Brands. Maybe you've been to their retail location or you're invested in the company yourself. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.